Hubscale Podcast. Huge thank to our viewers and listeners for tuning in today. We have a very special guest. We are joined here by Tim, who is the SVP and General Manager of EMEA for Veeam. He's helped to scale and build the EMEA team in Veeam over the past few years, and they have some really exciting plans coming up. Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, you bet, Lara. Thank you very much for having me. A big honor to be here, right? I mean, your podcast definitely takes its rounds, and I've seen some episodes here and been tuning in. So really delighted to be here and talk about that. And you're spot on, right? Veeam is currently a great place to be, and you may have heard, about acquisitions we're doing and maybe the latest updates that we gave as a company. But inside that, there's a lot of work, and as you said, scaling the right organization, making sure we are market ready, and all these things. So yeah, happy to chat with you about it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm definitely very excited to hear more about the plans and how you've gotten here. Veeam has been around for about 19 years and is currently at about 1.7 billion ARR, which is very impressive. So this is clearly quite a journey throughout such a long period of time in what is quite a competitive space as well. In the data backup space, I think we can all think of quite a few vendors that have not made it or not been this successful. What do you attribute to Veeam's consistent success?
Yeah, great, spot on. And by the way, this 1.7 sounds good, but I think we'll be getting very close to being a 2 billion company very shortly, right? So these things coming up, and I'm always super proud to say that the most business, actually more than 50% is coming from EMEA, the region that I'm responsible for with all of my teams and about 1,000 people that I have in my team. And it's simply, amazing to see and how we got to that and how we were growing it. So 19 years, absolutely right. This is where we started off, backing up virtual environments. This is how we started out, which was eventually VMware kind of workloads that we were doing. And now we're doing so many more, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a second. But I think besides the product, and product is always core of these things because you need to make sure you've got a product that people love, that the customers are really happy with, and that's really scaling. You also need to make sure that you as a company, you're acting with trust, you're also acting with adaptability, and you're creating a sense of community. Now, what I mean with this trust is really when customers give us feedback, we give customers the feeling of getting heard, right? And it's the same thing for employees. It's the same thing for everybody that we work with. We want to make sure everybody who has an opinion, who gives us feedback, will take it and will move further along with it. And with that comes the need to being adaptive to things, right? I mean, not everything that we are having on our table every day necessarily needs to be the number one top thing on top of mind for customers and for partners and for employees. So we always need to adapt to market changes when it comes to and look at the market and how it evolved in the past couple of years. I mean, look at ransomware, just to give one example, that just really exploded in size and capability. So we had to adapt, making sure that our customers can really stay safe and secure from everything that happens. And lastly, it's a sense of having a community. And Veeam has been really, really good and having customers engage in communities and we engage with them. So making sure we give them the feeling of never being left behind. And I think it's really that trust, adaptability, community that's been so essential in making sure we are who we are today.
And as you say, it's always multifaceted in that respect, isn't it?
Yeah.
And being able to adapt in an ever-changing market. Since you've already joined the company about 4.5 years ago, why do you think there's been so much growth in that period of time?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And actually, I've had this conversation with a colleague of mine earlier on, and somebody who wants to work for Veeam. And he asked me, it's like, what happened in those years that, Veeam was coming from a backup vendor, and that wasn't a negative connotation, it was just we were backup, period, to being like this full-fledged data vendor. And what happened in between? And I think there's been some good market dynamics that helped us think about it. Like a couple of years ago, when you thought about a backup tool, do you need that? That was kind of like bottom shelf at the supermarket.
Mm,
Why? Because you only bought it when you really needed it. You were never really thinking ahead and saying, oh, if something happens, it's kind of the insurance you never want to buy.
yeah.
But then in the past years, because there's been so much happening, so many attacks every day, whatever you read, whoever you listen to, you will always find out that companies' data are getting attacked. And if that helped us, getting from the bottom shelf to kind of the top shelf with CFOs, CISOs, CIOs, and whoever, all taking care about their data and
Mm,
making data like really the most important thing in a company next to employees. And that's really, one of the shifts of what's happening in the market.
mm,
And for us, that came with, let's think about how to redefine resilience as an operating model. Let's not think about we help you when something happened, but we'll help you preventing something to happen. Then that's really a big, big change. And ultimately, we strive to make sure we give customers the confidence that they can recover. And that's not an easy one to have. I mean, 92% of all companies that we work with have multi-cloud strategies. Can you really be super confident easily in saying, I can recover whatever happens? That's a tough ask, right? And that's where we play. So I think that was one thing. Next part is also the execution. We are working only with partners, and we make sure our partners, and that can be distributors, it can be cloud service providers, it can be alliances, GSIs, resellers, what have you, that we're working with them and enable them field playbooks, proof of concept templates, but also customer success motions that don't end at deployment. So we really want to go beyond that sale. What happens once you have the product? Do you use it? Do you use it right? How can you make it better? So really, we are maniacal about this time to value. This is super important for us. And the last thing, by the way, I appreciate this is a long answer, right? But we are also having this concept of proximity, because look at EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Sounds like three easy regions put into one word, but ultimately that's like 50 countries coming together. So that's super diverse. And we were growing largely by localizing go-to-market strategies, adapting to it, listening to country realities like what do you have? Sectoral regulations, cultural buying norms, procurement cycles, all of these things. On top of that, pricing challenges, support hours, partner selections, content, tons of things. So really that proximity along with the right execution with partners. And on top of that, all this innovation that we have with coming from backup leading to resilience, that really made the difference. And now, with the acquisition that we announced, which is still subject to close, we are going one step further and saying, we're backing up your data, making sure you can recover, making sure we keep you safe, but will also help you stepping into the next era, which is making sure you can scale safe with AI and making sure that the data you use to go into your LLM is actually trusted and can work out nicely for whatever outcome you wish for. So it's like, it's that big pack. Again, appreciate long answer, but there's so many things happening. So I'm
mm.
always just happy to talk about this.
Oh, definitely. And I think, particularly in a post-COVID world, I think everyone's a lot more aware. CISOs and chief data officers as well, have bigger and bigger budgets, and everyone's a little bit more scared as more and more attacks happen. But also it sounds like just the execution has just been very strong from Veeam throughout as well, which, is a perfect storm almost, right? So, um,
Absolutely.
I guess on a similar vein in that respect, Veeam has been the number one backup solution in EMEA for the past 5 or 6 years, which is unusual. You normally look at Gartner Magic Quadrants, and they're always you might see the same people, but might not always see the exact same leaders every time. Why? How have you managed to keep this consistent leadership in this space?
Another fantastic question, and by way of saying that I am so super proud that we've been keeping number one in the past 5 to 6 years. That's an amazing achievement. Look into IDC data. We're number one with double the size of our closest competitor. That is really an amazing achievement, which is down to several factors, right? But mostly because of the people we have, because without the people, in terms of employees, also in terms of partners, we would never be where we are. Because as I said before, EMEA is not an well, easy region is probably the wrong word to say, but it's definitely not a centralized region where you do with one size fit all. You
Mm,
need to have different sizes that fit different needs. So it isn't really one market that we have here, it's really dozens of markets. We have decentralized decision making, we have centralized principles, but our principles are clear. We are customer resilience first, partner first, and we are secure by design. But how we apply all those principles is really country-led, because we need to listen to the country of actually what they want and what they need and what really works well and what the data is. Looking to Europe, we've got the EU Data Act, we've got NIS2, we've got DORA, we've got all of these things. Now they are applicable here, but looking to like Middle East, where it's more like the desk certification or these things where we have local stuff. So we really need to work around those, making sure we do. And that's the strength we have. We've got people in all these markets, and we're making sure we're staying very close to our customers and always making sure that we are on top of things that are happening in those markets. If metrics we're using today are moving and they're not working out for us anymore, we need to be adaptable. As I told you in an earlier question, adaptability is key for us. And so, with that, I think we've really managed nicely to always navigate towards a customer need. And this is an easy saying. You can never go too far wrong by thinking first what the customer would think. I think Richard Branson said this back in the days, right? But he is so right. If you think customer first and put yourself into the head of a customer of what they would want to see, that's exactly the approach we're always trying to take. And that helps us. And that helps us to scale here. And by the way, I don't think we are near the end. We have a lot of growth in front of us.
Oh, completely. And it's interesting that you talk about as well, looking at country by country, because I think a lot of companies can get really focused, say, on the bigger territories in EMEA, like Middle East, DACH, and the UK, and it can be easy to forget there's so much money in the rest of the region as well. But they're all very different, of course, as
For
well.
sure. They
Um,
are. Yes, indeed.
So, obviously, as you've alluded to a little bit already, Veeam has just announced a big acquisition of Securiti.ai for multiple billions of dollars. Just a couple of weeks ago, it's still in the process of closing from the sounds of it, but it's sounding like it's just a matter of time. They are a very impressive DSPM, data privacy, and AI security platform. What impact do you believe this will have on Veeam and how they can complement each other as platforms?
Oh, I do absolutely love the news that we are in the phase of acquiring Securiti.ai. You're right. As I said earlier, it's not closed yet, so we still need to finish out the closing, but we announced the acquisition of it. And it really excites me. And I've heard people coming to me saying, how can a German guy like you be so excited? True, right? Because this is not necessarily the nature of us Germans of being so overly excited. But here I am really, because this is simply transforming the way we work with our customers and the way on how we can work at a total data scale that is in every customer's environment today. As I said earlier, backup and recovery is one. Then looking into making sure we can protect your data wherever it is, be it on cloud, on premise, and all these. This was the next big step that we had. Then we turned on a third step, which was saying, well, if there's still something happens, because there's never 100% guaranteed security, then we can help you with dealing with the people that want to take money from you in terms of paying ransom. So the threat actors, right? And that was a product on a company we acquired called Coveware back in the days, who is an incident response tool. But now this is like the fourth layer, and this is bridging the gap in between saying we use AI to make sure our customers stay secure versus threat actors use AI to make sure they've got faster access to all the data that you have and the dwell time is getting shorter. What Securiti.ai does is really multifaceted, right? And the first one is it maps where sensitive data lives, who can touch it, and how it's used. And they do this across clouds, about as a service, about data lakes, and on-prem. They do this everywhere. So you've got a complete pane of glass in saying, where's my data, and who can touch it, and how do you work it? Now, the second thing is there's posture management, privacy guardrails, AI trust tooling, and customers can govern data with that, not just store it, so recovery isn't blind. You don't want to restore compromised or non-compliant data sets into production. That's the key, right? We see more than 80% of AI projects these days failing because there was wrong or malicious data when going into the LLM. So with that pane of glass across all your data and with the ability to see and what happened with this data, you can be sure that everything that goes into the LLM is actually right data and is clean data. That's one big thing, right? With that, we're helping companies moving forward with all of their AI projects. Now, the second piece is, and this is even more important, but it's kind of a side effect that comes from this, but it's even more important in Europe probably than the rest of the world, is by having the pane of glass and by being able to show it every time, at every moment, for every file of who can access it, who can move it, and who can take that file from A to B, or who can put some AI onto files and all of that stuff. That actually helps them being compliant for the sake of your EU Data Act, NIS2, DORA, and all these things. So really this compliancy is a big motion with that. Plus on top of that, you can run all of your AI work. So if you think about this whole breadth, as I was saying, from backup all the way until feeding into AI, this is a fantastic thing. It shows that we are just crossing all types of data. And that's what excites me.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, having that 360 almost data, one-stop shop platform is an exciting goal overall. I guess in a similar in a world where AI is on everyone's mind, you can't do anything on LinkedIn without seeing it everywhere. And particularly relevant as a threat to protecting data. What impact do you think AI will have on the world of data?
Well, it's everywhere, as you say, right? I mean, if you pick up your mobile phone in the morning, the first thing you turn on your computer, AI gets you all of this stuff. There's not even a piece of news that gets shown to you first on your phone or on your laptop, wherever, without, having some AI to it, because AI believes they know actually what is your biggest interest in. So it's fundamentally reshaping the data landscape, and that can be as a catalyst for progress, but it could also be as a source of new risks, really. Something like alluded to earlier, right? I mean, threat actors are using AI as well, so that's going to be tricky. But let's look at the opportunity side. AI on the opportunity enables us to automate threat detection, helps us spotting anomalies in real time, for example, but also accelerating incident response far beyond that old manual process that you had probably in place and that could achieve it. So that's really this whole automation effect and being enabling you to be much quicker whatever you do. And we realize this in daily life. We realize it with ChatGPT. We need something quick, we'll find it. But think about it, you need to act quickly, and as a company, then this is really the opportunity that you have to go through and saying, where is the spot that is currently malicious? Where do I have a problem where people could access data and all of these things? So that helps super fast. Another example is machine learning models. They can sift through really billions of events to highlight user suspicious behavior, helping security teams focus on what matters at that point in time. Because think about it, in the ransomware report that we did, we said more than 70% of customers see an attack every year. Well, and one attack is probably just an underestimation because there's probably dozens of attacks even per week. But if one of those attacks is successful, what is the process behind it that people need to follow? If you have an AI helping you with that, you're much faster in seeing this. So this is really where there is so much opportunity in this. But then again, on the flip side, you got to be very careful when working with AI, because think that threat actors can use AI against you. And this is where it gets really tricky, because the speed of the way things are working, the endless opportunities that AI gives you to every side, whether it's going to be on the bright side or on the dark side, they are endless. So we just really got to be very careful of how to use it. And then again, that's coming back to why Securiti.ai acquisition is so powerful, because that helps you making sure you can use AI for the bright world and not for the dark world.
Exactly. And, I guess the next question is, it leads on very nicely from that, in that there's so many, when people speak a lot about AI, it seems like everyone either thinks it will be, the downfall of our society, and, I think very negatively of it being a big threat. Whereas other people see it as an ability to solve all of our problems. And how is Veeam approaching the problem or solution of AI? And do you view it as a kind of friend or foe?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I just alluded to, right? AI can be
Mm.
used into different ways for the good side and the dark side. But I think the importance and what drives the difference here is that you always need to have humans in the loop. And that's what we firmly believe in. So, for instance, if AI proposes the best restore point after a ransomware attack, a responsible human always validates their choice before systems go live. Right? And this is super important to know, because if you just believe blind into whatever AI can give you, then that human factor is out of bounds. And with that being out of bounds, you could still be fooled, because then again, the dark side could have used that differently against you. So there needs to be a balance to ensure AI remains as an ally and not a liability. We're really heavy into this. We really want to make sure that there's always a human element in there, and we are making sure about this, right? We never just go 100% automation, but always make sure there's automation guiding human principles and how that works. So, but everybody, again, just got to be really careful of how to use AI. I've seen way too many examples where people just rely AI. And the one thing I always say to them is, who invented it? It's
Yeah.
not that AI invented itself. It's a human doing this. And I think, looking back a couple of years, many years actually, who invented the computer? There was a human. So a computer can never be as intelligent as a human because there was somebody inventing it. Then again, we want to make use of computers. We did. And we want to make use of AI, and we do. And that's very powerful.
Completely, completely. And it's making sure it's the right people using it and not the wrong people ultimately, or at least being able to keep ahead of the bad guys anyway.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so is there anything that you are particularly cautious about with regards to AI?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, especially again, living in Europe, one thing is data privacy. So we really need to make sure that, just not any data can flow anywhere at any point in time. We need to make sure that the right data flows at the right time and that we are still protecting data that belongs to a certain person or type of individuals. That's number one. Then the second thing is the risk of bias. I mean, ultimately, the more you move AI, and we've been touching on this when we entered this conversation, we were thinking of, well, what do you actually see when you go into LinkedIn and stuff, right? So there's a lot of AI that tries to bias you into one way or the other, and we are very cautious of this one. And I want to, it's top of my mind to make sure that everybody's aware of these things, that it's not only AI. And then the third one, I've been alluding this for a couple of times in this talk already, is the potential for AI-driven attacks. That's just, there's an endless possibility for any threat actor out there that can just make use of AI and, jump right onto your data by impersonification, making sure they're using models that you've never seen before, and it just at lightning speed that these things are coming in. So it's really those things that keep me up awake at night, and it's those things that I think about of how can we actually safeguard these things, and how do we make sure that we as a society, going way beyond where we as Veeam are using AI in the right way, and how can we educate ourselves and educate others, making sure it's used in the best way.
Completely, completely. And it'll be interesting to see as well if the EU seems to be a little bit more ahead in terms of data privacy laws, particularly in regards to AI. So I'm sure that Veeam will do very well off the back of that as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Hopefully.
you bet you will always try to make sure that we're staying on top of these things, right? Whatever
Yeah.
comes on top of that. Because again, our interest is not to have AI misguiding someone. Our intent is to make sure you can use AI safe and at scale. And at the same time, we want to make sure your data is safe wherever it is.
Hmm. No, completely. So I guess as much as everyone always loves talking about AI
For sure.
constantly, to switch the topic slightly, I think people would be really interested to and find your background very impressive, and would love to be able to replicate the success that you and your teams have had in EMEA. And of course, EMEA is one of the most culturally diverse regions to manage in the world. Um, and people can often underestimate that as well. How do you manage so many different cultural norms and types of people while still keeping people quite, unified and part of the same team?
Yeah, that's a good thing. And, people is always number one. So essentially, the team that you have and the people that you work with, they define whether you can be successful or not. But that doesn't go without, simply just having the people, but it's upon us leaders, it's me and my leaders that I have, that we are creating a culture where people can actually contribute their perspective. And that's not something I've seen as a given. I've been in environments where it wasn't really that a state of the art that people could always speak up and give their opinions. To me, that's such an important thing, right? And I always try to get this notion of we can always agree to disagree. And it's sometimes easier said than done, but this is so powerful. If you give people the room to disagree on what you just said, then this is where great discussion starts. And when you have this, you're fostering an openness. You're fostering a culture where people really feel involved with you and where people really feel that they can express and be themselves. And that is in a world where we are in EMEA, with the more than 50 countries that we have, with all the tons of different cultures that are going in there, that needs to happen. And you also need to be able, of course, to adapt leadership style because each market is a bit different. So sometimes you got to be more on the political side of things. Sometimes you can be very direct, as we Germans are, but also, in other regions like the Nordics. So you just need to work through and have, very open ears and eyes to see and, what actually works best. But in one thing you can never go wrong is just always thinking about diversity and which region, which culture, which person you're talking to. And if you do that right, and if you give them an open ear, then I think this is kind of part of the secret sauce that we're having of being so successful.
Completely, which is amazing. So I guess for anyone trying to dominate their market in the EMEA region, like your team clearly has pretty consistently, what advice would you have for them?
Well, it's probably the same piece of advice that I give to every seller. And by the way, I'm not, the first person to do this. It's something people always reiterate, but not everybody always does it. You gotta be careful not to talk too much, but to listen more. Because by listening, you make sure you understand the person on the other side of the table. You understand your customers and your partners, and you get that local insight just by listening and then making sure to be adaptable in your approach. Because if you get feedback, then the number one thing people fail at is taking that feedback and not doing anything out of it. Take the feedback and then adjust your approach, adjust your behaviors, and make sure that what you say and what you do actually resonates with the culture that you're in. And also that effect of listening to people, this is where the difference comes from driving like short-term relationships to really long-term and deep and trusted relationships. So I think that's really critical. Listening, open ears, making sure people can raise their voice. I think that would be my number one advice to everybody working in such diverse regions.
Hmm. Completely. And do you think that would be listening to customers or to your team?
I think all of that. But I'm see when I'm within the region, I'm always with customers, with partners, typically trying to meet some journalists, but also with the teams. I'm with everybody, and I also want to make sure, and I put specific questions in. Give me your feedback. Tell me what's working, what's not working. Give me your market dynamics. What is happening in this role? Or just asking about specific deals, specific projects, and just really making sure people have the chance to speak up because that's so powerful to get all their intel. And without that, you would never be able to succeed. And again, I'm doing this on a weekly basis. I can tell you there's not one day where I'm not learning anything. So this is really it's a powerful tool for me. Listen, not only talking.
Completely. So, I think there's also a lot of sales reps out there that, started off in sales and they dream of being, in sales leadership one day. And from your perspective, in a period of 5 years, you went from being a senior AE in Salesforce to being VP of Enterprise in EMEA and then up to SVP of EMEA even further. What advice would you have for anyone who wants to make it into leadership from that IC role?
Yeah, thank you. And when I listen to this, it's always humbling to hear this thing as well, right? Because sometimes you just got to be mindful of where you come from and what you're doing currently. And I can tell you, I'm beyond grateful for the people that supported me. I guess there's a few catches in there. One is you always need to be able to show value beyond your immediate job, right? So always asking that number one thing: can you help? Can you support? Can I give you my opinion on this? Like these are the little things that you have always having curiosity, being super proactive, and making sure you're raising your hand when it comes to who's on to take on new challenges. This is really important because the growth only happens when you take on new challenges and you're outside of your comfort zone. But that's the one thing that you can do your own, right? Just be interested and be open to learning new things and do new stuff. But the second piece is always find that person that is willing to help you. Can tell you there's so many leaders and managers out there who are actually ready to give you support and they want to take you on the journey, but it only goes when both sides agree to it. So when in my case, when I was an individual contributor, I was open, I was curious, I was proactive, I was letting people know. And with that, I found people who were willing to support me. And especially during my times at Dell, that happened after Salesforce, I had a manager who was so powerful and looking after me and really tried to develop me. And we had fantastic talks over time, and I learned so much from him. And he helped me coming into a manager role. And from that manager role, I kept on doing these things and always making sure I go that one step further than what other people are doing. And so, I had this endless possibilities that I had so far, and I hope it doesn't stop at this point. But, I'm really grateful for the people that were here. But I can also say, if you do not open up yourself and if you don't go the extra mile and ask for support and ask people to give value beyond your immediate responsibility, then this won't happen. But ultimately, it's a great journey on, and I'm always happy when I can support sellers in growing their careers.
No, completely. I think having the best kind of mentor is always the most important thing. Um, and I guess in a very similar vein, do you believe that leadership is for everyone, or do you think there are some people who are better off as an IC?
I think the common misconception in today's world is really that we do differentiate in saying an IC is typically lower than, some manager or leader, what have you. I think the adverse is really true. It just needs to map out towards where you have your strength, where you want to be. See, I know people who were individual contributors now for decades, right? And they've been always doing that. They've been sellers, they've been super successful, they're driving their customers, they're driving really good revenues, they're earning good amounts of money in sales. And they always remained individual contributors. And why is that? Simply because they just like the job they do and they excel in the job. At the same time, I've seen people coming from ICs to being manager because of the great results. And I think that's a second big misconception, because you're not naturally a leader just because you're great in selling something to a customer. The adverse can be true. You can be much better managing people and making sure you create a great organization around you without being the best seller ever. So I think it doesn't go one way or the other. You really need to pick and choose and make sure you reflect yourself together with colleagues, with friends, with family, with customers and partners, just trying to have open senses of where your strengths really are and then map off where you want to be. But coming back to your original question, leadership is not for everyone. Not every job is not the same thing always for everyone. There's always jobs that fit better one person versus jobs that fit better another person. I think that's just so important to make sure you're also feeling well with that. You want to be a leader and you want to grow in that, because ultimately, as with every job, if it's not fun, it's not great.
Completely. Well, yeah, I think that's a great note to be able to finish on. That is unfortunately it for this episode of the Hubscale podcast. And I'd like to give a huge thanks to Tim for joining us today. Be sure to check out our LinkedIn and YouTube channel for more episodes, and look out for our next episode very soon.
Lara, I can't believe it's already over. Thank you so much. It's been brilliant to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time.
Of course, it's been a great conversation, and I'm excited for people to listen.
Perfect. Talk to you soon. Thank you.